welcome to 49 Unbeaten, the official ArsenalVavel podcast. This is episode 28. I'm joined by Ben. We've got a new face. We've got the other Jack from ArsenalVavel. So welcome to you for your first time.
Okay.
And we are here to review Arsenal's 1-0 loss to Olympiacos. But unlike the other team from North London in the Europa League, we went through. We didn't capitulate like them lot did, which for a start is good. We're through. That's the important thing. That's what we said needs to happen. Just get through. We wanted to sound it out, but in the end, it didn't really matter. Wasn't a great performance. Not a good result anyway, but before we didn't show any fight. It wasn't like we sort of beaten by the better team. Both of us were just dreadful. Ben.
They were just a bad football team. I was taking notes for the post-match report that I was doing. And about halfway through the first half, I just started listing how many times they just give the ball away under no pressure, like kick the ball off the pitch, give it straight to our players. It wasn't like we played well. We played pretty badly. But even playing as badly as we did, we could have scored 3, 4, 5 if on another night.
Yeah. It was just almost a case of either not enough sort of fight or we sort of took them for granted. I mean, Aubameyang missed a few sitters. It was, again, it's a case of, if on another night, but I don't know if we sort of wanted it, Jack. Do you think that?
I think Arteta's team selection was very reserved. So with the three sort of, I mean, Sabas isn't a defensive midfielder, but with Elneny, Xhaka and Sabas, it's a very reserved team. I thought we looked a bit tired, maybe from North London derby players that played on the weekend, looked a bit tired, but you could tell he was sort of set up just to damage limitation, just don't concede, which we obviously did, but yeah, don't concede enough so we go out. So I think, as you said, we got the job done. So there's nothing else that really matters. So
it's sort of worrying though going into sort of the next round of European football, and I don't really know what to make of it. Sort of you look at is it the European hangover? Sort of we beat Leicester last time we played the European game, then we beat Spurs, but we got results then. Sort of it's almost demoralising loss both going into West Ham who are in form, and then in a few weeks for this sort of quarter-final, you can't get away with results like that in Europe and performances like that. And they're a good team. It's like we got Slavia Prague in the draw. You look at it, maybe is it favourable? You look at United, Roma, Ajax still in there. Zagreb sort of on that high from knocking out Spurs, which we love. But it's one of the teams you said, if you'd have offered us, then probably we take it. But we can't play like that because they've knocked out a Leicester team who are above us in the league and a Rangers team who've walked the Premiership in Scotland. So is it worrying? Are you sort of worried about is this where our journey ends, Ben?
I think Arsenal are they drew the hardest team they possibly could because Arsenal have got to play Arsenal over 2 legs. Which is actually the hardest part. You know, they already have to play them week in, week out and don't seem to have learned. And every single time, like yesterday, for example, for the goal, you'd have thought that we're so poor in possession, especially with that side we had on. And yet on the 55th minute, you see Elneny sprinting past Ceballos, like a third of the way inside their own half.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you just think, why? Like, we didn't need a goal at that point. Sure, it would be nice, but the goal, as Jack said, was not to concede. And Arteta made that very clear with his team selection. It was almost Jose Mourinho. Like, I hate to say it. It was sort of what we have, we hold. And every time Arsenal do that, we tend to fail to hold it. So when we got the team selection, I was terrified, honestly.
It was weird. I can't understand it. Was it resting players from the derby? Was it resting players ahead of West Ham? And you think at home as well. I know there's no fans, but there's usually that perception of sort of at home you go for it a bit more. I don't understand the logic of what we have, we hold. We had a 3-goal almost advantage. So we needed to concede 3. You would expect us to concede 1, which we did. But I expected us to at least score. And it was almost a depressing team. You're right. It was what you see Mourinho do when he needs to get a result. just disappointing. Aubameyang, don't know whether it was just one of his off days or whether he's still holding a bit of anger at Mikel. Snatched at his chances a bit. I mean,
I think Arteta was backed into a corner with Aubameyang, not just for the disciplinary issues, but he was so bad last night that if it had been anyone else, and if it didn't have the media scrutiny that it was having at the moment, I reckon he would have been hooked half-time, 60 minutes. But because it's Aubameyang, if you hook him at half-time, if you hook him at 60 minutes, it's going to bring that frenzy of, is he still sulking? Is he really up? Is he really angry? Is there a fallout? And it's as bad as wrong as that might be. Arteta has been very clear that he wants to create this positive atmosphere around the club. We've seen that a lot, and all this sort of speculation would have done no good at all.
I can't think of anyone that actually impressed me yesterday. Jack, was there anyone? I mean, apart from it sort of being good to see Martinelli come on for a little bit, I can't think of any positives from that at all. Could you sort of find any sort of like?
Yeah, I was happy to see Martinelli come on. Obviously, we've all been crying out for him for a good, solid. Obviously, he had that little injury, and then since then he's not played. So we've all been crying out for him to come back. Then I thought Ødegaard was good when he came on. Looked positive again. He did create a couple of chances and looked lively. And I thought Pepe also looked quite decent in the first half. He looked quite good going forward because he had a bit more of an attacking emphasis on him. It was almost just him and Aubameyang was sort of playing as a strike partnership at times, and so he looked good. Apart from that, it was a bit of a dire performance, and just one that we've got to try and put behind us with West Ham coming up, I think.
Does this have any impact on West Ham and that game? Because I look at that and think, in the last 5 years, I mean, Upton Park was a tough place to go, but the last 5 years since they moved into that new stadium, they haven't been the same team, I think it's fair to say. But so they're doing well this season. Fifth or sixth, I think they are. They have a much better season than us. I'm worried. And I think whether it's just that we sort of said there's that chunk of important games, and West Ham was almost the end of that chunk because we get a 2-week break. I'm nervous now. I don't know if that derby momentum is going to carry over into Sunday, especially after a loss and in the manner we lost as well. I know it was 1-0. It was a deflected shot. It was all of that, and we went through. But it felt like we went out. It was just so flat, and we'll get punished. You look at West Ham, what they're doing. Bowen, Antonio, Lingard. You would expect to play that. And we all know what Jesse Lingard does at the Emirates. It's just flattening. It's really just. Can you see any sort of positivity going into that game, Jack, or are you sort of?
Yeah, I'd say I'm fairly optimistic at the moment as an Arsenal fan, which is quite a surprise considering how bad we can be at times. But I think, as we said, players were rested from North London derby and probably in the build up to West Ham because we know how good they're going to be and what a challenge they're going to be. I'm not particularly worried. I think we bring back in Ødegaard, we bring back in Saka, you bring back in all your sort of starters, and you start to have a fuller look to the squad again. And I think we give West Ham it'd be a tough game, but I think we give them a good game and fully back our chances. So
we traditionally like playing at London Stadium. I mean, you look back to that 2016 game with Alexis, which was just brilliant. But as we said, they're a different team. We're a different team. We don't have sort of someone like him anymore. And West Ham are sort of very solid. You look now, they've got someone like Soucek, Kufau, Antonio's doing well. Craig Dawson somehow hit form at 38 or however old he is. I don't know if we have the players to break that down physically. I don't know. Apart from maybe Xhaka, Partey, sort of less physical. You'd expect maybe David Luiz, that pairing. I don't know if we have to fight for it, to be honest. Ben, do you agree, or sort of do you have more confidence in this team than I do?
It's difficult because where we're strongest in attack is also where they'll be strongest in defence. So that left that left side where we're so good and we tore Matt Doherty apart is going to be a completely different. It's going to have a completely different fight when you're looking at Vladimir Kufal, who's been playing really well this season, and then obviously the Souček Rice pivot in midfield is going to. You'd hope it wasn't as successful as I fear it's going to be in shutting down Ødegaard. And it's going to be really important to just be able to get through the lines. And I think Partey's going to be really useful for that. But also to keep, I think, rotation across the front four. So I think if Smith Rowe plays, his rotation with Ødegaard is really good when he comes central. And I think it's just going to be about that movement in the final third. We can't beat them man for man in that position, I don't think. So It's going to be about creating those 2v1s, those overloads, and getting Tierney on the ball in dangerous positions because he is the main creator that we have at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go into it more in our West Ham preview tomorrow ahead of the game on Sunday, but I think this result could really do some damage. You come off so many highs of Leicester, Spurs, Benfica, and then this sort of, we went through again, but it's that lull of a defeat going into a London derby, a big game. If there's any shred of us wanting to get top 7, I think now qualifies for Europe. It's demoralising, and I'm just very pessimistic. And
I was going to say, you are the resident pessimist, so it is unsurprising to see you. Let's not be around the bush. The game was effectively a dead rubber. They were pretty bad for 45 minutes. We were as bad.
Yeah.
We had a few chances. They obviously had that big chance that Leno saved. Second half, they got a deflected goal. And then there was panic stations for 10, 15 minutes. Arsenal are very good at making a team look a lot better than they are in sort of 50 minutes after a flashpoint, like whether it's a goal or sending off. The Spurs one's the same. Arsenal, they're a bit like a heavyweight boxer that's just been on the floor. He's got up and his knees are all weak and he doesn't really know where he is and he's just holding on to the bell. Arsenal seem to do that far too often. And I think it might even just be about leadership out there. I don't know. There's not enough people, I suppose, that are just grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck and saying, calm down, keep the ball. You just see so often it's just going long, it's getting out of play, they're dilly-dallying with it around the box. It's just I don't even know what to say about it.
Are we favourites for the Slavia Prague game? Because they did really well against Leicester to knock them out. Rangers was a difficult one. You don't really sort of know if Rangers was all there, sort of highs of winning the league, Old Firm at the weekend. Was it really their priority? They won the league. Were they going to win the Europa League? Probably not, considering who was left in it. So again, you could sort of put that down to importance. Are we favourites for Slavia Prague?
Of course we are. We're Arsenal Football Club.
Go on, explain further, because I'm, again, resident pessimist. Look at that, saying they've had 2 giant killings in a row of 2 traditionally bigger British teams. And I know it's like, we're Arsenal with X, Y, Z, but you look at Leicester, they're third in the league. Lost, went out to them at home. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. But the two things I would say about that is a by all accounts, Leicester were pretty poor that night. Multiple people said it was slow, lethargic, a bit like our game last night. It seems like in the second leg, English teams just sort of switch off, which you obviously can't do in European football. And then second to that was we then beat them 3-1, and it could have been more at the weekend. So it's I thought there's are we overwhelming favourites? No. Slavia Prague is probably the biggest unknown, along with Dynamo Zagreb, left in the tournament. Yeah. You sort of understand how the other teams will play because you can measure them by the major 5 leagues. But Zagreb and Slavia Prague are just different kettle of fish, and they'll be really up for it. There's no doubt about that. This is going to be the biggest game probably of most of their players' lives, unless they move to West Ham. But they're going to be up for it. It's just going to be about getting the players in the right mental state and the right physical condition and keeping injury free until then, basically.
I've seen a lot of like 7-0s that sort of being brought up from a good few years ago. But then again, you look at who we had in that team at the time, you're like, you can see why it was 7-0. So we're through to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. We've gone 2 stages further than
Come on, you can smile, Josh. We're through.
We've gone 2 stages further than we did last season. Obviously, we got to the final the year before that against Chelsea, which is one of those games that we don't talk about on here. Or say we don't talk about and then talk about it almost every other episode. That's how it sort of seems to work. The route to the final is favourable. I guess you're on the right sort of side of the draw, if you like, if you want to follow that World Cup sort of route. With if we win, we play Zagreb or Villarreal. Is just teams that you would have wanted. You wouldn't have wanted United, Roma, Ajax. You wouldn't have wanted any of those teams. So it's been favourable to us. It's an easier route to the final than what we had last year. No, not last year. 2 years ago, with Napoli, AC Milan, Napoli, Valencia, I think it was. So you look at that, you'd be like, maybe anything's possible. But God, how I would love to win a European trophy, like, and see it, and like an important one, because we've won European trophies before, but we always get mocked for not, because it wasn't the like branded UEFA ones. It was the Cup Winners' Cup or whatever we won. So it'd be good to win that. And it's almost the only thing we've got saving grace for our season, isn't it? This competition. Jack, you sort of, is it all emphasis now on the Europa League and sort of stuff the league and hope we finish top 10, or is it we've got to play for both, considering sort of Spurs look now in that slump? Could we capitalise on that? Are West Ham going to tire? Are Villa going to tire?
I think it is important that we go all out and win the Europa League. The main goal for Arsenal and the club and all the hierarchy, the main goal is to get back into Champions League football. We're not going to be able to be fighting with Man City, Liverpool, Manchester United up the top of the table until we get the financial funds to buy your big 50 million players. So like the Thomas Parties, and then maybe make Ødegaard a permanent deal for 35 million. You can't do those deals unless you're in the Champions League. And I think the main goal, since we've not been in it, is to get back to the Champions League. I think it's obvious that it's our goal, because Arteta was resting players in the Premier League, wasn't he, a few games ago when we had Benfica and obviously our last ties as well. So I think, yeah, we've got to go all out for it. I think maybe not like you've got to still consider that we need to get into the Europa League for next year. It's not a dead cert that we will, because of how poor our start to the season was. But I think, yeah, certainly we've got to give it a good shot. And I think we being positive, I think we've got a good shot. You've got to play the big teams eventually, so we're going to have to play United. But as we've seen, we can beat United, and yeah, I think that's the route to go.
It's a really weird one, because we've almost picked up some form in the league. I know you sort of look at it and be like, is a 1-1 draw to Burnley a good result? Is a sort of 2-1 win against was it fair to say before that Spurs were out of form? Not where they want to be, not where you expect them to be. We've got a favourable run in domestically as well. So if you look at it, you sort of say, we've got a few hard games, but they're spread out. We've got West Ham, that's sort of a big game. And you sort of look at the easier games. We've still got Everton to play, and you go a few more games, and we got Liverpool, and then we got Liverpool next, and then it's sort of Sheffield United, Fulham battling relegation, Everton, Newcastle battling relegation, West Brom probably will be relegated by the time we play them, and then Chelsea, Palace, and Brighton. So we've got some hard games in there. But it's not like we play United, City, Chelsea all at once, and then by that point the league's over. Do we still have a shot at qualifying for a European competition domestically? I know we've joked about, we don't want to play in the Conference League, but it's still European football. Is it like, would we take it? at this stage in the season?
No.
Really? You still wouldn't want it?
No.
You'd rather finish 8th than finish 7th?
Yeah, probably. I think
but we'd win a European trophy.
It would be the European, like, obviously no disrespect to the sides that are going to be in the European Conference League, but they're going to be in the European Conference League. Like, they're not, we are used, I suppose, we don't necessarily belong there. We do. We belong in the Champions League. Like recent history-wise,
historical,
we belong in the Champions League. And it's where we should be aiming to be. And if we end up in the Conference League, that's just a bit of a piss take, isn't it? It just sort of sums up the decline we've had. I don't think we will. I think.
What, you think it could be Champions League or nothing?
No, I think it'll probably be Europa League again. As much as that pains me. I think we've got a more chance of doing better in the league than we have in the Europa League. Because I think with regards to league positioning and form, other teams above us are starting to slow down a bit. And also, you can recover from your mistakes more easily in the league, like over a longer period of time. Whereas if we start making, like, we've made mistake after mistake, even with this so-called good form since Christmas.
Yeah.
We're making mistakes. We're bouncing back from them fine. But in a game, in a two-legged tie where you make one mistake or you make two mistakes, they can prove fatal. Then they did against Benfica. We are able to give teams goals, and you can't do that in a Europa competition, especially not if we ended up going to the Champions League next season. Like, that's the one place we've really got to shore up.
See, I'm confused because we're in so many situations where sort of winning the Carabao Cup gets you Europa League. So, God forbid Spurs win that competition. That's one place gone. Then you look at it, sort of, if Chelsea or Man City win the Champions League, the West Ham get the place. If Man United win the Europa League, they get a Champions League place, but they'll finish second anyway, so we don't get it. It's a really weird scenario, and I think 7th is the Conference League. I think. So you've got to hope we go on an insane run of form in our last 10 games, and that we pick up more points than Villa, who are in form with a game in hand, Spurs, who could finish bottom half if they carry on the form they're in, Everton, who sort of started the season really well and have just sort of been all right where they're expected to be, and so Liverpool have had, by their standards, disaster, but you do expect they'll sort of turn it around now. They're sort of grinding out those results. I don't know if we'll finish 7th. I'm not as confident as you are, Ben, and I really hope I should be. Just to finish off, were you surprised to see Bukayo Saka in that England team, considering we've been told he had a slight injury, he was a doubt, he was rested for the Europa League game, and then he gets pulled up the same day? I don't know if it was sort of Arsenal trying to play tricks, if Southgate's picked him because he likes him and he trusts him and it's going to be anyway. Jack, were you surprised? It's good to see Arsenal representation in there, don't get me wrong, and I'm happy.
I think with England, we've got the majority of our promising players are obviously quite young. So we've got the Fodens, we've got all these other young players. So I think Southgate's trying to build a core of players that are going to move forward for the next 8 years and then go through the next 2 tournaments. So I'm not surprised to see him in there. He was in the last 2 tournaments that we played, last 2 squads in November and whenever they were. So I think Southgate's a big fan. His versatility gives him a massive bonus. Or he can play. I think Southgate's going to play a 5 at the back. So Bukayo Saka, a left wing back, is a very good option. But also he can then play as a winger as well. Do I think he'll start? No, just because of the sheer talent that is ahead of him. Sancho, when he's back in the squad after injury, Rashford, Sterling, all these players. So no, I'm not surprised, but I'm happy that he's in there. And with the injury thing, I think it'll just be a fatigue and a slight muscle injury that he'll overcome in the next game. I wouldn't be surprised if he was back for West Ham though.
Were you surprised to see him listed as a forward, Ben? Because it's sort of before we've seen him listed as defender. So I don't know whether he's brought him in as kind of like sort of that Sancho mold, sort of, I will play you on, you can play on either wing, so we'll play you on either wing. It's a strange one considering sort of who he's got in that squad, and you sort of say, right, Shaw deserves it on current form. Chilwell's not been playing regularly for Chelsea, but again, Saka's then been playing forward for Arsenal. So I don't know whether Southgate's sort of following the Arsenal mould, or he's going to use him, like Jack said, as a wing back in a 5.
I think it's difficult. It's going to be very difficult for Saka to get in that England team. I think the problem is as well, he's not brilliant as a sub. Like he's not. He's got a lot of good attributes, but they tend to be best used from the start. He's not one of those players that you want to come on and change a game if you're not Arsenal and desperately need him. It's I think difficult for. I think it'll be difficult for Southgate to drop him from the squad, given his, he's up right there with Phil Foden. But I also think it's difficult to see him starting, especially with, as you say, Chilwell coming in. We've only got, is it 3 internationals, 2 internationals?
We've got 3 games this run of fixtures, which, considering the opponents, and again, no disrespect, but San Marino, Montenegro, and Poland, I think, are the 3. So, I mean, you sort of most likely cases he starts against San Marino, and I mean, because that's our first game. Does he start him against San Marino? Because there's a lot of questions.
Luke Shaw, just because he's seen Saka at left wing.
As a forward, would be start Saka, and sort of we've heard Jose sort of asked for consideration that Harry Kane doesn't play all that time. You'd expect a lot of managers said, right, we don't want them playing 3 times 90 minutes. So does Rashford maybe move centrally? Does Calvert-Lewin go centrally? And we sort of see Saka on either wing. It's a really interesting one. We'll have to see how it plays out. And obviously we'll be on Saka Watch during the international break and maybe bring you some updates on how he and England have been doing. I think that's it from that, for this episode. We've sort of covered everything we wanted. And the most important thing is we got through in the Europa League. That's what we have to be happy about. And it's all well and good criticising a 1-0 loss and team selection and negativity, but we won. And that's the important thing. And we can now progress and move forward. We've got West Ham in the league, obviously FA Cup weekend as well. Neither of us are in that, unfortunately. Then we get 2 weeks off. And we've only got sort of Saka going out to England. World Cup, you'll see sort of a few members of the squad probably going out. Maybe keep some in, sort of Smith Rowe. That'd be really important that he gets 2 weeks to rest because he needs it, especially after you've seen him covered of injuries. He sort of hobbled off against Olympiacos last night. It's come at a good time for us. I think you can see it both ways. Good time for us. Players get rest. I think that's what's really important. But do we lose that momentum? And then going into Liverpool, which they'll be up for, will be up for as well to try and mount the case in the league. I don't know. I think it's a positive to have it at this time. I wouldn't have had it if it was up to me. I wouldn't have had a break, but they're happening. So it's a good time maybe for some rest and recuperation and sort of takes the pressure off being an Arsenal fan for 2 weeks. You don't have to worry about, we're going to lose this game or anything like we're going to get knocked out because our season over. Thank you both for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, Jack. You're welcome back on any time. And we will probably get you to do your 1 to 11 at some point soon as well, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So thank you for watching or listening, depending on what your favourite podcast outlet is. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good stuff that I say every episode and mostly butcher. We will be back on Saturday, which is tomorrow when we're recording this, for our West Ham preview. And for the time being, take care and goodbye.